Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes. Welcome to episode 1 of our summer season of the Food Freedom Fertility podcast. I am your host, Sophia Pavia, and I'm flying solo without Caitlin today because we are doing these summer episodes as quick little snacks, just little bites of the most pertinent fertility-related information that you are dying to know today. So we're going to come back with our regular season where it's me and Caitlin jabbering, chatting, laughing our asses off as usual. In the fall, those episodes are going to come back. So don't despair if you love hearing Caitlin and I bebop off of each other and you love the experts that we interview. But these summer episodes are going to be quick, to the point, giving you the information that you need today about how to get pregnant, stay pregnant, and bring home your healthy baby. Today's episode is about a topic that I am literally shocked we have not had a episode dedicated entirely to this, because this is probably one of the most commonly asked questions in the fertility world. It is definitely one of the most Googled questions in the world, especially when it comes to pregnancy and fertility. Can you guess what it is? Well, if you looked at the title of this episode when you clicked on it to listen to it, you will know that I'm talking about when and if to take a home pregnancy test. I'm going to answer that question for you today. So diving right in, before you can know when to take a home pregnancy test, you first need to understand how human pregnancy works. So from step 1, what has to happen is a healthy egg needs to be ovulated from your ovary. So this is when your body matures one of your primordial eggs. That just means the egg that you were born with matures into a mature, viable egg, and then that egg pops out of the follicle it was developing in and goes into your fallopian tube, where hopefully healthy, viable sperm are ready and waiting. That egg becomes fertilized and bing, bang, boom, there's your baby. From there, the baby has to travel out of the fallopian tube down into the uterus where implantation can occur. This is where the baby burrows into the lining of your uterus and begins to communicate with your body via your own blood supply. The main way that the baby does this is with a hormone called human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG. There's not me like a spelling test later, so don't worry too much about that. But HCG is the name of the hormone. That is the hormone that a placenta makes. And the placenta eventually develops. That's the part of the pregnancy body, uterus. It's sort of its own thing at that point. It's like an organ that grows within your uterus. That is the communication point between your body and your baby. So when your baby implants, that hormone will begin to rise, which sends a communication message to your brain, to your ovaries. Hey, don't have a period. Keep making progesterone. A baby's here. Finally, we've done it. We've done what every single organism since the dawn of creation has tried to do. We have made offspring. That is what that hormone is telling your body, and your body just screams with joy. This is what the ancestors were waiting for. So that hormone is what we are testing in a home pregnancy test, and really like a beta HCG draw at your doctor's office, or a blood test. For our purposes today, we're going to be talking about home pregnancy tests, which may be a little different than getting blood tests done if you're working with a fertility doctor. But for the average Jane who's just trying to get pregnant, you are going to be using a home pregnancy test. So that's what we're talking about today. So let's talk about sort of the timeline where these things happen so that you can really understand why and when pregnancy tests are accurate and when they are not. When you ovulate, you've got about 18 hours. Some data suggests maybe up to 20 hours for the sperm to find the egg to make that baby. So We are talking about ovulation occurring, fertilization occurring. And from that point, believe it or not, it takes like 6 or 7 days for that baby to move out of your fallopian tube and into your uterus. That is when implantation can occur. Now, as a survivor of an ectopic pregnancy myself this past January, this part's a little triggering, but we're just going to be talking about healthy, viable pregnancies at this point and not all of the potential permutations that can go wrong. We can save that for another episode. So, in a healthy, viable pregnancy, that baby is going to come down through the fallopian tube and begin to look for the spot in your uterus that looks most like home. We don't have scientific data to show us exactly why babies choose to implant where they do. Some people say, males like to implant on the left side, females like to implant on the right side, whatever. We don't have like really good data to support this, and it's something that science doesn't yet understand. But what we do understand is it takes about 7 days for the baby, so like a full week, for this baby to make it out of the tube and into the uterus. And it's around between day 8 and day 10 that most implantations of viable, healthy babies occur. So, about 8 days past ovulation is when this baby is going to begin to burrow into your uterus and send a signal of that human chorionic gonadotropin into your bloodstream. Now, it's not like a light switch flipping that we can like immediately know that this baby is here. Of course, you have your own motherly intuition. You have a connection with God and the Holy Spirit. So maybe you can supernaturally know things. But when we're talking about like biologically, we're not going to see a measurable amount of this HCG hormone in your bloodstream until at least day 8, usually around day 10. And bloodstream is even more concentrated than urine. And the home pregnancy test goes off of urine. So you're going to get the most accurate view of whether or not you're pregnant after 10 days ovulation. Day 12, after your confirmed ovulation, is usually when you will get a positive test if you are in fact pregnant this cycle. So that is when you can start testing and expecting an accurate result. So obviously this starts with confirming ovulation, and Caitlin and I love basal body temperature as the best way to confirm ovulation from home. So 12 days after your confirmed ovulation is when you will most likely get an accurate result. When it comes to home pregnancy tests, they're sort of like a yes or a no. They're not going to give you the amount of hormone in your bloodstream or in your urine. It's definitely dependent on the way that your liver processes this hormone, your level of hydration, as well as the amount of HCG in your bloodstream that's then getting filtered into your urine. So it can be sort of variable, but when it comes to pregnancy tests, any hint of a positive is a positive, because your body is not going to be making HCG under any other circumstance than pregnancy. That is really the only time we're going to see any measurable HCG in your urine naturally. Now, of course, if you're doing medicated cycles and trigger shots and things like that, you can have this hormone injected into your body. And of course, then it will show up in your urine. But unless you've done something like that, when you take a home pregnancy test and see a positive, it's a positive. There's a baby in there, like 100% of the time. Of course, there can be evaporation lines, and different tests have different variability. So if you don't look at the test within the prescribed time, if you're like me and you're like guilty of coming back into the bathroom and like looking in the trash can at your test like 6 hours after you took it, at that point the test would be considered like invalid, because the way that the urine evaporates off the test can create lines on the test that wouldn't necessarily be a positive or a negative, just sort of the discoloration due to urine evaporation. It's called an evaporation line. That's what they call it. Um, So if you're looking at your test and look at the directions on your test, most of them say you dip it in urine for 5 seconds and then let it sit for 5 minutes. And what you see after that 5 minutes is your most accurate result. So when you're using the test appropriately, as written on the packaging, and you see any hint of a positive, you're pregnant. That is the way that these tests work. So even if you see a little something and you're like, well, I guess we'll wait and see, most likely all you're going to see is that line getting darker day by day because a baby is in there. It can't tell you much about the health of the baby. We can't say how long that baby's going to be in there for, but you have every reason to expect that you have a healthy baby in your body until something proves otherwise. So you can rejoice at that positive pregnancy test. Next is what kind of test you want to use. There are a lot of different ones out there. There's like the clear blue, and their whole thing is that they use a blue dye. And then there's the regular pink dye test, so like Pregmate, the cheapy ones that you get on Amazon, First Response, they all use red dye. I am very partial to the red dye because white and blue are just not as different as white and red. And when you are very early pregnant and this test is working to pick up on just a little bit of that HCG, the pink dye, the red dye, is going to be much easier for your human eyes to see and to get an accurate read than the blue tests that give you that like blue plus or minus sign. I like the red dye tests. Those are the most accurate for human eyes to view, and I will die on that hill. It is just after looking at hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands, got to be, or more pregnancy tests at this point, I can tell you that the red dye is the most accurate. So those are my favorite. Those are the ones to go off of. And we have what? Tradition, culture around taking pregnancy tests that we, like this brand or not that one, or want to get the digital, or you wait to use the digital one until you've gotten like a mysterious result on a pink dye dip test with just the line. And there's really no wrong answers. Do whatever makes you happy, but the most accurate one for the human eye to view, in my opinion, are the pink dye tests. And the digital ones that say pregnant or not pregnant, personally, I recommend saving those. First of all, they're like way expensive. And secondly, I recommend saving those until you have gotten a either slight positive or perhaps mysterious result from the cheaper line tests. That's my personal recommendation. But you do whatever you want. And I also want to add on to this that there is no quote wrong time to take a pregnancy test. Your most accurate result is going to come at least 12 days after confirmed ovulation and using your first urine of the day. So your first pee once you wake up, at least 12 days after ovulation. That's when you're going to get the most accurate result. But if you want to test before that or want to test at different times during the day, sister, pop off. There's no rules about this. And when you are first trying to get pregnant, girl, I do not blame you for being so excited and want to rip through pregnancy tests. It's probably the first time in your life you're even taking one. It's a big thrill. Do it whenever you want to do it. There's no wrong answer, but just don't hang your hat on a result until it has been at least 12 days after ovulation and you're using your first morning urine. And I'd like to add using a pink dye test because I think they're more accurate. That is what I recommend as far as taking pregnancy tests. And if you are somebody who is triggered by this, let's say there's been infertility for months and months and years, you have had a pregnancy loss where you saw that line get darker and then get lighter. You've had a chemical pregnancy where you maybe saw the positive line and then got your period a couple days later. It can be triggering, truly triggering to take a home pregnancy test. And in that case, I would advise that you protect yourself and don't go testing until you've hit that 12-day mark and you're using your first morning urine. If it is an unpleasant experience for you to take a pregnancy test, don't start doing it at 7 days after ovulation. You are not, it's not going to give you an accurate result, and it's likely just going to play mind games. So that is my recommendation to you when it comes to home pregnancy tests. And I guess that wraps it up. Our first episode of the summer season is just a little mini-sode. And if you liked it, if you loved it, please rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend, share an episode. It helps other people find us. And I look forward to recording another episode for our Little Snippet summer season coming up next week. Thanks for listening.